And we are back live. Okay, live, might I add, broadcasting on Party 93.4 FM in Hudson Valley, New York, and Party 94.9, and of course worldwide on Party934.com. And the video portion of this is broadcasting live on Justin.tv/B Dave Walters. And I'm just looking, we got more listeners than ever, so we're welcome aboard, everybody. Thank you. I appreciate everybody who's listened to me week after week, who's told your friends, told your family, spread the word. I really appreciate it. Thank you so very much. So that was an episode of All About You where we talked about fear. When I started at the beginning of this episode talking about how I see some people stuck in the same cycles, continue repeating the same toxic relationships, repeating the same toxic cycles of activity, and now we can kind of get into why that is, and I think you've probably got an idea, and the idea is fear. Well, it's two things actually. It's fear and it's unresolved issues from the past. And normally I have to go through a pretty long process of kind of getting people to see this for themselves. It's kind of that Socratic method. You know, we talked about Socrates a couple weeks back, of getting people to arrive at certain conclusions on their own. Like you've seen the movie Inception, I'm sure. If you haven't seen it, it was phenomenal. But one of the hallmarks of Inception is you can't just place these ideas in someone's mind. They have to think they thought of it themselves. Because if you just place it in their minds, they reject it. So normally I can talk to somebody for about 30 seconds and they're like, I don't know why I do this. And I can be like, did this happen or this happen? They're like, yeah. I'm like, that's why you do it. But then they kind of look at me with this blank face because everybody wants to believe that they're this infinite mystery, right? That the rules don't apply to them, that just basic psychology or things or basic self-development concepts don't apply to them, that it must be some more complex, more difficult answer. So as I talk, for now, just look at the people around you, right? Because everybody else's BS is always transparent. You can look and see, oh, yeah, I hear you, Dave. That's exactly what my mom does. I hear you. That's exactly what my sister does. That's exactly what my best friend does. So maybe it's not what you do, but it's what everyone else does. And maybe as you see everyone else doing it, you can kind of start to see where maybe sometimes you're playing this out in your own life. So the first thing I would say is look at a situation that you're unhappy with or that you know a friend is unhappy with, right? And look at how long have they either been stuck in this cycle or how many times have they been stuck in this cycle in the past. Like maybe you've got somebody who's in kind of an effed up relationship, right? That's the technical term for it, might I add, effed up. And they've just been in it for way too long. And they always complain about it. And we just heard it in that video that I just played. When you've got something that you're upset about, you've got two options. Two. And man, I mean two. Change it or deal with it. Change it or deal with it. Like just today, I had a situation come up. And it's funny as I share with you some of these experiences that I have in talking to friends and colleagues and coaching clients. You might think I'm talking about you, especially if you've talked to me today. And maybe I am talking about you, but I won't give your name. But sometimes I hear the same things from lots of different people. It's interesting. I tend to get questions in bunches that people have the same problem all around about the same time. So I really may not be talking about you at all. But you can see how this may or may not apply to you. So I have this person who's been in a relationship for about 3 years or so. One of the people in this relationship really wants to get married. I actually know both. They're both friends of mine. One of them really wants to get married. The other one says, I'm not going to marry you. I'm not going to marry anyone ever. This one of the people in this relationship has probably an inappropriate connection with a young, attractive person who is outside of the confines of their relationship. Sorry, I'm having to keep this general. And one of the significant others is very threatened by this person's relationship. Okay, and over time, this third party has always been around, has always been there. They kind of openly flirt. They kind of openly put messages to each other back and forth and email and everything. And the other person gets so upset about it and mad with it, but in the end, they stay. They stay. That's what I'm getting at. If you know your significant other kind of runs around on you, or at least publicly talks in ways that they probably shouldn't, and kind of stays up late talking to people that they shouldn't, and kind of tells you they're never going to get married, and you stay, it's kind of on your own head. You understand what I mean? It's kind of like if you're in a situation where somebody, I don't know, if they're an alcoholic and they're an unrepentant alcoholic and they don't want to get help and they don't want to change and they sort of bring you down and they bring your family down and you just sort of stay with them while they drown and pull you under. Past a certain point, you cannot blame the person that is doing these things. You kind of have to look in the mirror and take some own responsibility for why you stay in that relationship and why you stay in that situation. And so here's the question. If you're in one of these toxic relationships, why are you still there? And by the way, because I love them, unfortunately, is not really a good enough answer. I hate to say. I hate to be the one to tell you that love is not enough. It may not seem romantic, but it's just not. Because it is possible to truly love, passionately love, someone who is absolutely positively wrong for you and absolutely positively bringing you down and absolutely positively toxic for you in your life. And you can love each other. Man, you can love each other strong, but that doesn't mean you need to be together. Okay? Especially if you have kids. Oh my goodness, especially if you have kids, because if you're stuck in one of these relationships and you have children, ask yourself, would I want my children to have this relationship? Would I want my children to grow up and relate to their significant other the way that I'm relating to my significant other? Because I got bad news for you. If they're watching you, if they're observing you, and by the way, they are watching and they are observing you, chances are spectacularly high that they're going to recreate your relationship in their relationship. If you argue and scream and fight, they will argue and scream and fight. If you get cheated on, they are going to get cheated on. If you go out and cheat, they will probably go out and cheat. Especially guys. Guys with little girls. Hey, listen up, fellas. Guys who have daughters, your daughter is going to become those women that you are running game on and that you are playing. Your little girl will be her. That's going to happen. Remember that. When you go out and you do these things and you consciously manipulate people and you consciously hurt people that you know love you, yeah, not only is that going to come back, it's going to come back on your children. Because we get stuck in this cycle of repeating the past and playing out the past. Are you starting to see now how these ideas of fear and these ideas of repeating the past are kind of interwoven? And I'll tell you why that is. We kind of get stuck between this push and pull of being afraid to let go of the past and being afraid that the past is going to repeat itself. And we get so hung up in this that the past ends up repeating itself. Like, let me give you another example. For the most part, little boys have a very powerful connection to their mom, and little girls have a very powerful connection to their dad. And this connection is what will primarily play out again and again and again in your life. And I don't mean it like some Freudian you want to sleep with your parents type thing, because I don't really subscribe to that school of thought. I'm more of a Jungian guy. But you will find men that treat you like your father treated you, or you will find women that treat you like your mother treated you. Now, obviously, the opposite is true. That however you related to both parents will continue to come up. But let's say you're in a situation where you always pick guys that reject you. You always pick guys that are kind of emotionally unavailable. You always pick guys that need help that you can save. And believe me, I understand this because my default thing was I was a helper. I would go after the girls with the most daddy issues and the most baggage, and I wouldn't even know this consciously. It was an amazing thing that I could just walk into a room and just hone in on the most damaged girl, and I would just know. And actually, oddly enough, I still can do this. I still can do this. The people that catch my eye, the people that I find attractive, are usually the biggest psychos in the room. But unfortunately, I've just had to accept that I might have a broken picker, as Dr. Drew likes to call it, that I might be drawn to people who are not good for me. And once I saw this and was able to break this pattern, then I was able to find a wife who loves and supports me and that I can love and support and that we can grow together. But it wasn't until I realized that I had this kind of like damaged thing where I kind of wanted to save the world and save everybody in it that I was able to free myself from this process, right? So again, sorry, went on a tangent to my tangent there. That's kind of pro. That if you're always picking these guys that are fixer-uppers, then maybe look back and look at your own relationship with your own father and look at your father's relationship with your mother. If you had a dad who was either physically not there or emotionally not there and didn't really give you much affection or positive reinforcement, or God forbid was negative towards you or abusive towards you or mean towards you, and then you look ahead and you see yourself in situations with guys that don't give you affection, that aren't there physically or aren't there emotionally, or God forbid are mean to you, then there's a direct relationship between those two things. I tell people this again and again, and quite often they don't want to believe me. And when we sit down and talk, people come to me and they say, "Hey, I have this problem, I have that problem," and I say, "Okay, tell me what your relationship with your dad was like and what his relationship with your mom was like." And inevitably they're like, "Oh, he wasn't there," or "he was a jerk." Or I have some people that are like, "Oh, my relationship with my dad is great." And then we work together for months, or in some cases years. And then they're like, "Actually, my relationship with my dad is horrible. It was horrible the whole time." And I'm like, "You kind of could have saved us. You kind of could have saved us about 18 months at work if you just told me this in session one. We can kind of start dealing with this, okay?" Now, an interesting thing in guys' psychology is the way this manifests, and of course, all of this stuff is in general, by the way. I mean, nothing is 100% true about 100% of people 100% of the time, okay? There's absolutely people out there that had damaged relationships with their parents, and it just kind of didn't phase them, and they went on to become healthy and well integrated. This will affect some people more or less. So your relationship with your parents will affect you more or less. What I'm saying is, if you have these patterns that continue to play out and continue to repeat, then the place to look for their cause is in the past. You follow me? And it's rooted in that same basic idea of I'm not good enough, like we just talked about in the recording. Okay? The fear that you, as you are right now, are not enough. And you will continue to play out these cycles that either reward this sense of not being good enough. And it's weird to think that you can seek something out that makes you feel bad about yourself. But it's basically an addiction. It's no different than what a heroin addict goes through. It's no different than what an alcoholic goes through. Because your subconscious has accepted that this is what love looks like, or that you don't really deserve love, and it keeps bringing it to you. Your self-image has adapted to the idea that you don't deserve love, or that this is what love looks like. Love looks like somebody who yells at you. Because to your 5-year-old mind, when you were being yelled at and screamed by your mom, rather than say to yourself, "Well, clearly mom doesn't love me because she wouldn't talk to me like this if she did," what your mind will adapt is that is love. That is love. So if you find yourself in situations, or you have friends and family that you see in these situations, where maybe they run from the good guy, maybe they don't return the phone calls of the guy who's actually nice, of the girl who actually treats you nicely. You don't go after the girl who is willing to come over and hang out and play Xbox with you, right? You would go after the girl who screams and throws bricks through your window, right? Because that's what you learn early. That's what love looks like. You don't see it now, and these things weren't conscious choices. Okay, I get that, and I want you to get that. It's not that you sat down when you were 8 years old and you said, my father didn't come to my ballet recital By extension, I'm not a priority to him. His work or whatever he was doing is more important than I am, and therefore I have no value, and what I care about is meaningless. No, that's not how it works, okay? That's not how it works, right? But somewhere along the way, this younger version of yourself was faced with these situations or these traumas, and you made a decision right then, and you made it right then in that moment, and those decisions are still playing out in your life. That's what I want you to hear. Now, if you are a type A go-getter, maybe you don't have any of these problems at all. If you're the type of person that you kind of go out and win, and you're really comfortable in your own skin, and you have good and positive relationships, and I really hope that is you, then the opposite of this is true. You can look into your past and you can see times that you got a lot of positive reinforcement, that you got a lot of people telling you good hustle, that you got a lot of people telling you that you were smart and pretty and cute, like I do with my 3-year-old, right? And the most amazing thing is I'm always telling my 3-year-old that, you're so smart and so pretty. And she added in that you're so cute. But now I see her telling her 4-month-old sister that her 4-month-old sister is so smart and so pretty and so cute. And then she told her best friend that you're so smart and so pretty and so cute. So see, now she has formed a positive self-image about herself already and is starting to spread a positive self-image to others, right? And that's a fantastic thing. That's a fantastic thing. Okay? Now, how can you start breaking these patterns then? How can you start breaking these cycles? Now, we already know first law of thermodynamics, right? Because physics pretty much applies in human relationships. That an object in motion tends to stay in motion, and an object at rest tends to stay at rest. What does that mean for us? What that means for us is if you've been doing these things for a long time or not doing these things for a long time, then it's going to be hard to change. If you've gotten used to looking in the mirror and saying that you're fat and ugly and nobody loves you, then it's going to take some time to start seeing things in a different light. If you're a person who's been keeping others at arm's length because you're afraid of getting too close, if you're afraid of getting hurt, if you're afraid of being disappointed, all of those are kind of big red flags of unresolved baggage from the past, by the way. Whenever you walk into a relationship with a new person and it's anything other than a clean slate, that's a big red flag about unresolved baggage from the past. Okay? If you've been cheated on and you're afraid the next guy's going to cheat, baggage. If you always argued and fought with the last girl and you're afraid you're going to argue and fight with the next girl, baggage. Okay? You got to start completing some of that stuff. Because the biggest mistake that you can make, and that we do this all the time, is relating to tomorrow like it was yesterday. Okay? The first time you call him and he doesn't return your call immediately, you freak out because the last guy that didn't return your call was off cheating on you. Okay? And now the new guy kind of thinks you're a little bit psycho because you're going insane because he didn't return your phone call. Okay? When the reality is, like we said in the video, what's actually happening. Okay? You called him, he didn't call you back immediately. There's obviously a million reasons why somebody may not return your phone call immediately. Maybe they're broadcasting live on the radio worldwide on the internet, right? Maybe they were sleeping. Maybe they were eating. Maybe they were seeing a movie. There's 100 reasons, okay? Now, the flip side of this is if this happens consistently, then maybe you start seeing a pattern of behavior. Like this is something else that I was dealing with another person about, that they were dating someone. The someone they were dating wanted to keep their relationship a secret. Side note, huge red flag. Big, like, bold, blinking, stop, stop, stop sign is when somebody wants to keep your relationship a secret, okay? If they are not willing to stand up and let the world know that they're with you, that's bad. That's really bad. And if you were in a relationship that you're with somebody that you feel the need to keep a secret, that's a pretty good sign that you should not be doing it, okay? Even if you're having conversations on the internet and things with somebody and your significant other or your parents walk into the room and you kind of rush to close the window and delete the chat history, you probably should not be having that conversation, okay? So anyway, this person dating someone, the person wants to keep it a secret. Problem number one. Problem number two, when she calls this other person, they take days to get back and they say, oh, I'm busy, right? Now, I just said there's 100 reasons why somebody might return your phone call, and within reason, this is true. But how long does it really take to send a text message that says, hey, I'm busy, I'll call you back later, right? Especially when it starts to become a pattern of behavior, right? Now, fast forward, the thing is now, my friend's family apparently is against them dating this other guy because he's a friend of the family. And the moment that it came out that the family knew, he instantly wanted to break it out. Like, oh, your family knows. I don't want to deal with it anymore. It's too much trouble. And I kind of smell a rat there, okay? Because again, he doesn't want anybody to know that he's dating. He doesn't want, he's hard to get a hold of for long periods of time. And now the moment that he has to kind of people know that he's supposed to be with you, he wants to run away. Now, when you hear that, what does that add up to in your mind? Because I can tell you what it adds up to in mine, but what's it add up to in your mind? You are not the only person that he's dating, okay? Universal rule. Universal rule. After about, well, three dates or so, if you have not met his friends, you are not his girlfriend, okay? Right? If he doesn't really kind of take you around in public, if he just sort of wants to come by for like late night booty calls, you are not his girlfriend. And here's the thing. Okay, so my friend goes and has a conversation with this guy, and he lays out for her how, they can't do this, they need to just be good friends. It's too much drama, and he doesn't want to deal with the drama. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let me ask you a question. After that, did you have sex? Yes, you're getting played. Okay? You're getting played. If he gives you the I don't want a relationship, let's just be friends, but still let's go ahead and hop in the sack, you're getting played. Unless of course you just want that too. And you're totally within your rights to do that. If you guys agree as adults that like check this out, I'm just gonna swing by on Wednesday nights and we're gonna do this thing and go our separate ways, then that's great. That's fine. I got no problem with that. The problem is when one of you's all in love. Remember, we talked about how the fact that relationships got to be on the same level. You both got to be looking for the same thing. You both got, if you're both, one of you's in love, you both need to be in love. If one of you's in love and the other one's in it for the sex, you're going to have problems. If one of you's just dating and the other one wants to get married, you're going to have problems. If you're both just dating, great. If you both want to get married, great. If you're both just in it for the sex, great. But again, when a guy tells you that he just wants to be good friends and immediately tries to get in your pants, you're getting played, okay? Same thing with a girl, right? This happens less often, but it absolutely does happen. It's like that Offspring song, Low Self-Esteem, right? That if you got a girl who when you guys go out to the club, she leaves you sitting by yourself and kind of goes off with her friends and everything and just wants a ride to and from the club and wants you to buy all the drinks, but doesn't want to actually spend any non-sex time with you. That's kind of a problem. Now, I know my guys out there are like, wait a second, hold on. She's willing to have sex and doesn't want to hang out afterwards? Sign me up. Right? But again, if that's what you want, that's fine. But if she's supposed to be your girlfriend, you hear me? If you're supposed to have a relationship and that relationship isn't there, then you have to ask yourself, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to deal with it or am I going to change it? Because again, staying in the situation and bitching about it is not an option. Hear me, it's not an option. If you have signed on for the fact that this person treats you in a certain way and they make you feel bad about yourself and they're kind of asleep at the wheel in the relationship and this relationship is probably damaging your children and you choose to stay in it, then the only person you have to blame is you. The only person you have to blame is you. You can look squarely in the mirror and ask yourself, why are you in this situation? Are you willing to do something to change it, or are you willing to just deal with it and accept that this is just going to how it's going to be? That he's kind of going to run around on you, that she's kind of going to be mean to you. And you have the right to choose to accept to stay in that situation. But my question then is why? 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 Because here's the universal relationship test. The universal relationship test. Okay? Here's how you know 100% accurately whether or not you should stay in a relationship or whether or not you should move on. Let me lay it on you. You just have to ask yourself one question. Do you spend more time together happy, having a good time, loving, supporting, and growing with one another? Or do you spend more time unhappy, fighting, feeling bad about yourself, or having to ask if you're happy? Because if you have to ask, am I happy? You're not at all. And if you spend more time in a non-happy state in the relationship, what can you do to repair it, if anything? And if you cannot repair it, leave. Because why are you signing on for an optional relationship with another human being that's making you feel bad about yourself? Because I can tell you with 100% certainty, it is better to be alone than be with the wrong person. So many people are afraid of being alone. Ooh, I'm afraid to be alone. Yeah, for what? For what? Because I can tell you being alone is better than being in an effed up relationship. And why can I say this with such certainty? Because at least if you're alone, you have the ability to find the right person. Because what's the worst thing that's going to happen? The worst thing that's going to happen is while you're alone, you don't necessarily take the time to figure out why it is that you're repeating this pattern in the first place. And you're just going to end up in another effed up relationship. Okay? So if you leave this toxic relationship, it seems like the absolute worst case scenario is you're going to break even in another toxic relationship. Right? Hopefully, you can take a step back from this and look and see what is it from the past that you are playing out again? What happened to you and when that made you make that decision? And here's the thing. The person that made that decision was a 3-year-old or 5-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, or maybe even a 20, 25-year-old, pending how traumatic the situation was. But would you let a 3-year-old make your financial decisions? Would you let a 5-year-old make your career decisions? Would you let an 8-year-old make your interpersonal decisions? Because in many ways, you're doing that exact thing right now. You're allowing the decisions that you made at another time in your life to continue to dictate your actions and continue to dictate your decisions. If you have a problem with authority, look back to maybe there were some overbearing people in your past and you still have this child in you that's throwing tantrums when your boss is asking you to do something. If you have a problem with intimacy, if you can't let anybody get too close, look and see, was there some time in the past that somebody that you really loved abandoned you? Okay? And if you think they abandoned you, really look at what took place there. Because this is a big mistake that guys make. And guys, I know, and a lot of moms do this too, but more guys do this, that they think that just because we work hard and just because we put food on the table, that's it, that's all it takes. That I put clothes on your back, and so you should know that I love you. But the fact is, people don't work that way. Kids don't work that way. Spouses don't work that way. Okay? You still have to have that love and reassurance, okay? And intimacy, emotional intimacy with your children, and emotional and physical intimacy with your significant other, right? But if you look back and you see this dad that was kind of distant from you, and now you keep everybody else distant from you, or you attract people who are going to be distant from you, and you're just going to kind of chase and fight and make them love you, right? Give this up. Release this. And how do you release this? How do you release this? The way you release this is you forgive the person that wronged you. And you forgive yourself for letting it happen. It sounds simple. People say, well, how do you forgive? I'm like, you just forgive them. You just let it go. Well, how do I let it go? You just let it go. Give up the idea that they wronged you. Because here's the thing, they did what they did, or they didn't do what they didn't do, and it's done. It's in the past, okay? Give up the idea that it should have been different. Who knows? Maybe it should have been different, but the fact is it happened. It's done. Give up the idea that you want them to apologize to you. You want them to feel bad. Because here's the thing. Holding on to anger with the intent of hurting someone else is like picking up a hot coal with the intention of throwing it. You are the one who gets burned. That's a quote from Buddha, and it is true all the time. If you're holding on to this anger, if you're holding on to this anxiety, if you're holding on to this bitterness against someone because you're trying to bring them down, or you want to get even with them or see them punished or something, the one who's suffering for that is you. Is you, not them. And again, maybe they do deserve to be punished. Maybe if they did something criminal, maybe so. But the fact is, it's done. And forgiveness, when we talk about forgiveness, we're not saying you're saying what they did was okay. You've heard me say this 100 times, and I'm going to say it 100 more times until everybody gets it, okay? It's not saying what they did was okay, because maybe what they did wasn't okay, right? But it's done, and you don't have to keep carrying it with you. You don't have to bring it into the future. You don't have to take the person that cheated on you last time and make them the person that cheated on you next time. You don't have to take the person that made you feel bad about yourself last time and make them, feel bad about yourself next time. You don't have to do this. You don't have to stay in this situation. You don't have to feel bad all the time. You don't have to feel yucky all the time. You don't have to feel unfulfilled and disconnected and sad. You don't have to do it. And if you choose to do it, then recognize you chose to do it, that you choose to stay there. If you choose this situation and choose to feel unfulfilled rather than face the uncertainty of what tomorrow holds, that's fine. You can do that, but recognize that you did in fact choose it, right? Now we're going in to our second hour, so of course, let me just play us in appropriately here. And we're going into the second hour of Rise Up with B. Dave Walters. Simple solutions to life's hard questions, broadcasting live on Party 93.4 FM and Party 94.9 in Hudson Valley, New York, worldwide on Party934.com. And of course, the video portion of this is on justin.tv/B. Dave Walters. And we're talking about completing the past. We're talking about forgiveness. We're talking about all of these things that if you can manage to get a handle on this, if you can get a handle on these ideas of not clinging to these ideas, of not being overly attached to things, not being overly attached to people, not being overly attached to the past, to not look to others to define you, to not look to others to validate you, to not look to others to complete you, because you don't have to. Everything that you have is already inside of you. Everything you need is inside of you. You are whole, complete, and perfect right now, right? Remember, you plus God is the majority. You in the universe. If God can be with you, who can stand against you? If God is with you, who can stand against you? Okay? So you can start to form a new idea about yourself. You can start to form a new self-image, and you can start to do this by taking some pretty simple steps. The first thing, and this sounds silly, but for everybody who listens to me and really does it, it works. It works every time. Look at yourself in the mirror, look yourself in the eye, and just say to yourself, "You are great, and I love you." Ideally, say it out loud. If you can't say it out loud, say it mentally. But look yourself in the mirror and say, "You are great, and I love you." And watch and see what happens. See if it feels good to hear it. See if it feels bad to hear it. See what comes up in your mind and what responses you get and what baggage plays when you hear that. Because that's going to let you know how far it is that you've got to go. And it's going to let you know what you're playing out from the past and what it is that you're carrying with you. If you look at yourself in the mirror and you say those words, "You are great and I love you," and immediately you hear a voice in your head say, "No, you're not. Ask yourself, why is that? It's like we said in the video. Don't be afraid to dialogue with these voices. Don't be afraid to interact with them. And it may sound crazy, but I don't know, you can decide if you want to be in the bathroom and maybe seem a little odd for talking to yourself in the mirror every once in a while, or you can be miserable for the next 50 years. I'll leave that up to you to decide. But you can start to dialogue and interact with these components of yourself because in their own way, they really are trying to help you. Okay? It's just somewhere along the way, you've adapted this self-image. You've started to look at yourself as the guy who's a loser. You've started to look at yourself as the fat girl. And that's who you have become. And your mind keeps giving that to you because it thinks it's what you want. Like we said, your subconscious mind is like a 5-year-old supercomputer, right? It never forgets anything. It's capable of processing insane amounts of information like that. But it will filter it and give back to you what you think you want. So you have to reprogram it. And this is how you reprogram it. Okay? And then you can decide whatever else you want to feel instead. However you want to look at yourself, you can start programming it into yourself. Okay? After you say you're great and I love you, maybe you'll say something like, you're worthy of being loved. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to be treated with respect. And as you say these things, see what happens. See the anxiety that kind of starts to fill up in your stomach, right? But when it happens, don't run from it. Stay with it. Stay with it. Okay? It's like if you saw that movie Fight Club, the scene with the acid burn when he kissed his hand and threw the iodine on it, right? And he said, this is the most important moment of your life. Stay with it. Connect with it. Okay? Most of us go through life half asleep. And we're running from things and we're reacting to things. And that's why we're repeating those same cycles. Because that's the default, right? It's like I play these songs when we're here, and I am going to play some more songs here in a minute. But if I just put it on repeat and I walk away and I don't put any more thought, any more action, any more intention to it, then the same thing will start to play again and again and again. And you'll hear the same thing again and again and again until you just turn it off, right? And that's what happens in our lives. The same song plays again and again and again and again until we tune out and turn it off, right? So pick a new playlist, right? Pick a new plan, right? And know in advance that it's going to take time before this kicks in. You've had 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 years of living into a certain pattern, of living into a certain self-image. So the first time you look in the mirror and you're like, yeah, you're great and I love you, it's not that just suddenly everything's going to work out like that, right? It might, though, if you really believe in and accept it. But you've got momentum. You've got momentum that brought you into this, okay? You're used to seeing yourself as a smoker. That's what makes it hard to quit, right? It's not that quitting smoking takes time. Quitting smoking happens like that. The moment that you stop smoking, you are no longer a smoker. What takes time is arriving at the decision to stop smoking and reprogramming your self-image to be a not smoker. You follow me? It's like right now, if you're addicted to dating jerks, it takes time to stop being addicted to dating jerks, right? It may be that the next nice guy that comes into your life, your gut reaction is kind of to push him away, but maybe you can't listen to that gut reaction. Maybe you can't. It's like I told you, I like hot psychos. I still like hot psychos. Okay? But obviously I'm married, but even if I was single, I know about myself, I like hot psychos. And so when I see these people and I talk to them and I realize they're psycho, I have to know that maybe I can't go after the first person who piques my curiosity. Maybe the first person that gets my attention is not the best for me. Okay? And so this may happen to you. This may happen to you. You may have had a alcoholic, abusive mother, and you're drawn to alcoholic, unstable girls, and you go out for a date, and you go out on a date with an alcoholic, unstable girl. You don't have to pursue a relationship with her. You don't have to save her. You don't have to save him. Because let me tell you something. They don't want to be saved. It's not your job. It's not your place. Okay? You have to sort you out. Remember, we talked about this with the cave, Plato's cave. Because Plato's cave and Schrodinger's cat are apparently our mascots here. I need a picture of a cat in a box in a cave to put up as my logo, right? But we talked about this. Even if you could go and get this grand new awareness and go back and try and share it with others, they don't want to hear it. Maybe the first time you were exposed to the law of attraction. Maybe the first time you were exposed to some of these ideas that I'm sharing with you now. You went and you tried to tell people and they kind of laughed it off like you were crazy. You run into that? Maybe when you start trying to stop being the club girl, maybe when you stop trying to be the party guy, your friends kind of relate to you like you're dumb and just kind of keep trying to drag you back, right? Because they don't want to change. But that's okay. You don't have to change them. Because as you can see for yourself, it's hard enough to change you. It's hard enough to keep track of you. It's hard enough to keep you balanced and stable. Okay? Much less to try and get anybody else to become balanced and stable, right? Now, I just kind of glazed over this idea of forgiveness because we were moving into the second hour. And I've looked at ways of explaining this in many different ways. And in the end, I really cannot say it any clearer than forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself. You don't do it for the other person, you do it for you. You release that negativity, you release that anxiety, you release that grudge and those toxic emotions, and you just let them go. And when they come back, because they probably will come back because you've got momentum build up, you release it again. Okay? If anything, when I did landmark education, if you've ever done the landmark forum or anything like that, it's fantastic. I highly recommend it. Parts of it are weird, I'll warn you in advance, but there's a lot of good information in the landmark forum. You can visit their website, landmarkeducation.com. And one of the things they make you do as a part of the forum is you actually have to apologize. You have to apologize to the people who have wronged you in the past. You apologize for making them wrong. And this is a fantastically powerful thing. When you call your dad and you say, Dad, I'm sorry that I got mad at you because you were always gone working. I'm sorry that I got mad at you because I felt like you drank too much. You will be amazed at some of the responses you get. Sometimes people will get really like defensive about it and still try and defend their actions, but it doesn't really matter. Just like I said, forgiveness is for you, not for them. But quite often, when you approach them from the point of view that you made them wrong for doing what they did, you'll be surprised at how open and authentic communication becomes and how people really will apologize for things right then or share things with you that you never experienced. I've been fortunate that I'm the type of person that for the most part I don't really carry grudges. I don't really stay mad about things, but I still realize some cycles from the past that I was repeating. And when I went through this process and I apologized to people for making them wrong about things, I was really surprised about the how open and authentic some of the conversations we had afterwards were, or how defensive some people were. I think if I'd written down in advance what I predicted people's responses to be, it actually was kind of the exact opposite. But and then that's kind of the whole idea of attachment, non-attachment that we talked about before. If you look at it, some of the grudges, like say you're mad that your mother walked out on your family, which is something pretty justifiable, and it has some pretty big psychological repercussions. But if you think about that, the reason why you're mad that she left is you had the belief that she shouldn't leave. Does that make sense? And the belief that she shouldn't have left is really, it's just that. It's a belief. It's a choice you made. It's not a choice she made. It's a choice you made. Because your mom gave you life. I mean, really everything you needed from her, she pretty much gave you right then, right? Or the fact that your dad left, that your dad divorced you, they got a divorce and he went and he started a new family. The reason why you're mad about that is the belief that dad should have stayed. He should have stayed. She should have stayed. She should have been different. He should have been different, right? But the fact of the matter is, they did what they did. They did what they did, and they didn't do what they didn't do. And another really powerful thing you can do here is if you know how old your parents were when you were born, and if you're like most people, your parents were probably in their 20s. Some of you may be in their teens, right? Go out and find somebody. Go and find a guy and a girl that are the age your parents were when you were born and talk to them. Just look at them. Do they seem like they have all the answers? Do you know any 22 or 25 or 16 or 18-year-old kids that have all the answers? No, no. And but we expect our parents to because we come into the world hardwired to believe that they hung the sun and the moon, right? But you got to start letting this go. You got to start letting this go. And you can, if that's your thing and you want to apologize to them for making them wrong, you can do that. That's kind of an advanced tool that not everybody can use. But at least in your own heart, at least in your heart, let go of the anger, let go of the resentment, let go of all of the negativity that you've been carrying with you because it's time to put it down. It's time to put it down. And once you put it down, you can start to create something new and start to create something better. And you will stop perpetuating this cycle in your life and you will stop perpetuating this cycle in your children's lives. Because please, if you've got kids and you don't hear anything else, complete this and put it to bed so it doesn't become their burden because you're making it their burden. You may not see it, but 20 years from now, they'll be talking to somebody like me because of the choices that you're making right now today. So please start making new and different and better choices. Okay? Now, I'm going to play a little bit more music for us now, and then we're going to go into some questions and answers. Like I said, I've got a ton of questions submitted to formspring.me/the Dave Walters. And I'm going to give you some of those questions and some of my answers to them, and I'm even going to share with you some of the classic questions that I've gotten in. But in the meantime, here is Carolina Liar with Show Me What I'm Looking For.